Have you ever stopped to think about how that one product you just can't live without actually came to be? You know, it's not magic. It's actually a pretty intense, high-stakes journey. So today, let's pull back the curtain and look at the structured process that turns a cool concept into a worldwide hit. And, at the same time, figure out why so many others just fizzle out.
All right, let's just start with a dose of reality. Get this, up to 95% of new products fail. That is a huge number, and it really shows you the kind of risk we're talking about with innovation. And that stat, it's not just some scary number, it literally shapes how companies think about creating new things. It forces them to be super disciplined about where they place their bets. I mean, think about it. For every one product that succeeds, there are 19 that just didn't make the cut.
So you hear that 95% number, and you have to wonder, right? How did something like the Nintendo Wii just completely defy the odds and become this massive hit? Well, while everyone else was in this arms race for better graphics and more powerful, expensive consoles, Nintendo, they just went the other way. They zigged when everyone else zagged. And by doing that, they created a whole new way to play. That's the kind of game-changing thinking we're going to dig into.
Okay, so here's the roadmap for today. First, we're going to look at what we're calling the innovation gamble. Then, we'll dive into the idea funnel. It's basically a survival of the fittest for ideas. After that, we'll see how a concept becomes a real strategy, how we make it real, and finally, the big one, launch and adoption.
All right, first up, the innovation gamble. Look, in the world we live in today, things move so fast. Products can go from being the next big thing to being totally obsolete, like overnight. With new tech popping up all the time, companies just can't afford to sit still. So this idea of constantly innovating, it's not really about growth anymore. For a lot of them, it's straight up survival.
So why is that failure rate so crazy high? Well, it's like navigating a minefield, really. There are so many ways to mess up. A company could completely ignore what their market research is telling them, or they could get way too optimistic about how many people will actually buy the thing. You see, development costs just spiral out of control, and sometimes it's something as simple as a bad design, the wrong price tag, or a competitor just comes out of nowhere with a killer response that sinks the product before it even gets a fair shot.
But with all those ways to fail, what's the one thing that actually predicts success? It's a great question, and some really solid research gives us a surprisingly clear answer. The number one success factor, more than anything else, is having a product that is unique and clearly superior for the customer. It's not enough to just be different. You have to be better, period. So, okay, how on earth do you find that one superior idea? Well, the smartest companies don't just wait for a lightning bolts of inspiration. They use a very structured process, and it's often called the idea funnel. Think of it like this. You pour a ton of ideas in at the wide top, and then, stage by stage, you systematically weed them out until only the one or two absolute best ideas make it out the bottom, ready to go.
In this chart right here, it really shows you just how brutal that filtering process is. I mean, look at this. To get just one successful product, this company had to start with 64 different ideas. And notice what happens to the cost at each stage. As you kill off more ideas, the price to keep testing the survivors just skyrockets. All told, it took almost $14 million to find and launch that single winning product. Wow.
And hey, if you think that sounds intense, just think about Sir James Dyson. You know, the vacuum guy? To create his revolutionary bagless vacuum, he built, get this, 5,127 different prototypes. Now that's not failing 5,126 times. No, that was a 5,127-step journey to get it exactly right. It's just an amazing story about the kind of persistence you need for real breakthrough innovation.
So let's quickly walk through those formal steps. It all kicks off with idea generation, right? You're just casting a super wide net for any and all possibilities. Then comes idea screening, where you start weeding out the bad fits nice and early. A good idea then gets developed into a testable concept. From there, you build out a full-blown marketing strategy and do a deep business analysis. And it's only after all that homework is done that you finally start building the actual product.
But where do the best ideas even come from in the first place? This famous quote, "If I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse," really gets to the heart of a huge debate in innovation. Do you just listen to your customers? Or do you go after a bold vision that they can't even imagine yet? The truth is, the greatest innovators, they usually find a way to do a little bit of both. And that brings us perfectly to our next big piece, turning a fuzzy idea into a rock-solid plan. This is such a critical step. It's where you get really specific about who this product is for, what exact problem you're solving for them, and, this is key, how it's going to stand out from everything else that's already out there.
So what's really the difference between an idea and a concept? It's a great question. Let's look at an example. A powder to add to milk. Okay, that's an idea. It's vague. But what about this? An instant breakfast drink for adults who want a quick, nutritious meal. See the difference? That is a product concept. Suddenly you have a target audience, a clear purpose, and a real benefit. It's something you can actually go out and show to people to get their reaction.
Okay, so once you have that solid concept, the next step is to see where it fits in with the competition. Companies do this thing called brand positioning mapping to get a bird's eye view of the whole market and look for an opening. So for our breakfast drink, maybe you'd map out all the competitors based on price and, calories. The goal is to find that empty spot on the map where your product can live and have a unique advantage right from day one.
All right, now for the fun part, making it real. Because let's be honest, all the strategy and planning in the world doesn't mean a thing until you have something you can actually hold in your hands. This is the stage where the plan finally becomes a physical prototype, and it gets ready for some serious testing. First inside the company, and then out in the wild with real customers.
And there are two really important phases of testing here. First, you've got alpha testing. That's all internal. You have your own employees bang on the product, try to break it, find all the bugs in a safe, controlled setting. Once it gets through that, it moves on to beta testing, and that's when you give it to actual customers to see how it holds up in the messy, unpredictable real world. So let's fast forward. The product has survived the idea funnel. It's made it through all the planning and testing. Now it's time for the final act, the launch. But here's the thing. Launching is really just the starting line. The real challenge is getting people to actually start using your product, to make it a part of their everyday lives. Yeah, and not everyone jumps on a new product at the same time, right? There's this famous theory called the diffusion of innovation that shows how people adopt new things in waves. You've got these 5 different groups. It always starts with a very small group called the innovators. The make or break moment for any new product is if it can cross the chasm and get to the early and late majority, because those 2 groups, that's the mainstream. And each of these groups thinks completely differently. Your innovators, they're the tech geeks, the risk takers who try new stuff just because it's new. Then you get the early adopters. These are the cool kids, the opinion leaders who see how this new thing gives them an edge. After them comes the big one, the majority, who are more pragmatic and kind of wait and see. Then you have the skeptics, and finally, the laggards, who are really resistant to change. So to get that initial buzz going, companies almost always focus on those first 2 groups.
So what is it that makes some new ideas spread like wildfire while others just don't? Well, it often boils down to 5 key things. First, relative advantage. Is it obviously better than what's out there? Second, compatibility. Does it actually fit into how people already live and work? Third, complexity. Is it a huge pain to figure out, or is it simple to use? Fourth, divisibility. Can people try it out on a small scale, like with a free trial? And last, communicability. Is it easy for people to see the benefits and tell their friends about it? So next time you pick up your phone or use your favorite app, just take a second to think about the incredible journey it took to get to you. It had to survive that brutal idea funnel we talked about. It was sharpened from a vague idea into a crystal clear concept. And it had to successfully spread from just a few innovators all the way to the mainstream, all the way to you. It's a pretty cool reminder that the simplest, most elegant products we love are usually born from a really complex and strategic process. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What product do you use every day do you think had the wildest ride to get here?